Hot take, Maryland will upset either Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. Now, again, I want to preface this. We're not saying they're going to upset all of them. This is just a hot take. We love getting people fired up here. We love looking at the coin a little differently here. Do they have a shot, Chris, to upset any one of these schools this year?
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you guys why. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I love when we do these and people just don't understand where we're coming from. But Maryland's a very interesting team, guys. Last year, they went 8-4 or 8-5, excuse me. They've won 15 games total. I think the last 2 years they've had 2 winning seasons. They haven't been bad, right? They got Tua's little brother. I can never say his first name correctly. I'm not going to try to pronounce it now. This kid was recruited by Alabama, by the way. He's been around college football for quite a while. Christian and I are super, super high on quarterbacks, like Bo Nix, been around a while. Michael Penix, guys like that, been playing football for 3, 4, 5 years. Maryland's very interesting. They are. They do play in the East, though. Which is probably their biggest knock. You stick them in the West, they're probably competing with Wisconsin, the Iowas of the world over there. Unfortunately, though, Christian, this year, they got to play Ohio State, Penn State, obviously, and Michigan. The good news is, though, they got Penn State, Michigan at home. They also have to play Illinois, who I'm very high on this year, obviously from the West. We've talked about them at length a couple of podcasts ago, Christian. I do think they have a shot. They're kind of a weird team under Mike Locksley. He's been there for 5 years. I think this is going to be his 5th year. He's done a great job with that program. He recruits very well. Maryland's put out some stud players, by the way. DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs. These guys put out some people in the NFL. Vernon Davis back in the day. I can name a bunch of players in the NFL from Maryland. They do a good job up there recruiting kids. The big thing is their defensive side. Can they – I actually kind of have this weird feeling this year. They knock off one of these 3 teams. I know people in the chat. I know once we get this on YouTube, people are going to laugh me off the internet about it. But they're an awkward, weird team with a veteran quarterback that can throw the football. I guarantee you right now, Christian, Alabama wishes they had this kid still there. He would be their starter compared to the 3 trash cans they got walking around there now. So, Maryland's a very interesting team. Very interesting team. They recruit well. They got a lot of kids back from last year's team. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not going to pick which team, but they do have 2 of the 3 at home, and that's a big thing, man. It really is in college football, especially nowadays. So, I don't know if I want to put my foot down, but I could see this definitely happening. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. If Maryland beats Ohio State or beats Penn State, and hey, holy shit, Maryland doesn't get near enough love. Like I said, a good year last year in the Big 10, especially on that side of the conference at 8-5.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, and it's like you said, I mean, they're one of those teams that, dude, I could see pulling an upset this year, an upset or 2 this year, right? And derailing some teams' playoff chances, right? Because they returned, I think it's Talia Tagovailoa.
There you go.
And bring in some great talent around him too, dude. I mean, so I like Mike Locksley as a coach, and I trust him to win the games he's supposed to.
Yeah.
But, the biggest question mark for me, for Maryland really is going to be how that line holds up, man. I mean, I saw Talia get beat to hell last year in that Ohio State game and some of those games. I mean, you know how the defensive lines in the Big 10 are, and they are unforgiving if you do not have a decent offensive line.
Well, it's funny you bring up the Ohio State game. They played Michigan closer than anybody did last year, other than obviously the TCU game. You know what I mean? They played them super close. That was like a 1-score game at the end of the game. I mean, they're kind of an awkward, unorthodox type of team when you play them. They run some goofy stuff. I mean, but I give Locksley credit, man. 5 years there, and that program's had a bad history of coaches running through there and some of the stuff that's happened, behind the scenes over the years and stuff like that. He's done a great job there. Like I said, the guy recruits incredibly well. I mean, he's put out some talent. They always had, I don't know what it is with that Maryland area. Even in basketball, kids from that area are awesome. So I don't know what it is, but they get athletes, they get kids that can play in the NFL. It wouldn't shock me this year. I mean, would I be shocked a little bit maybe because one of these 3 teams obviously are – most people got these 3 teams in your top 10 right now, but they might not. They might shock the world and beat one of these. I wouldn't be like overly floored and be like, holy crap, Maryland beat somebody. Because I watched that game against Michigan last year, Christian. That was an 8-point game or a 6-point. It was super, super close. It really pushed Michigan was down most of that game. It was an ugly game, but they held in there, man.
Dude, you're right. They held in there, and they held their own against a couple of these teams last year, man. I mean, here's the thing, right, is to me, I look at who do they have the best shot at upsetting. We got their schedule pulled up here. I think it's either Ohio State or Penn State, right? Because while Ohio State has to figure out the quarterback position, O-line play could be a little shaky at times as well, just because of who they're losing. Penn State, to me, the reason why I put Penn State on there too is they got to look for Drew Aller to step up, this year and kind of prove something. Obviously, prove his rating as a quarterback. But again, I mean, they're going to play at Maryland in that game, which I mean that could be a trap game for the Nittany Lions.
Oh yeah,
So it's late enough in the year, November 4th.
I'll say it. I'll add another team to this list. Like I say, I'll say Illinois. Man, I do. I think Illinois with their smash mouth football, the way they want to play football, they're not a high scoring team really by any means. Their defense was number 1 overall last year in the country, which is crazy. Not a lot of people know that, but I could see Maryland pulling off even one of them. I know that's not in the answers right here, in the question, but it wouldn't shock me if they do something kind of crazy this year. It really wouldn't. I have Maryland finishing 8-4 this year, which I don't think is a bad year. But if they win a 9-3, that means they either beat one of the 4 teams that I just mentioned. So it's definitely within the realm, especially when you got a veteran quarterback, Christian. This kid, obviously, we know who his brother is too. Plays for my Dolphins. He played 1 year at Bama. Actually did play a little bit, by the way. This kid was highly recruited. This kid can play. Like I said, Alabama would die to have this kid right now as their starting quarterback versus the dumpster fire they got back there now.